This is the end of a long journey for us in the Commission, but that is little when set against the long search for justice and recognition by victims of institutional abuse.
A 9-year investigation into Ireland's Roman Catholic-run institution says priests and nuns terrorized thousands of children, and government inspectors failed to stop chronic beatings, rapes, and humiliation. High Court Justice Sean Ryan released the 2,600-page final report of Ireland's Commission to inquire into child abuse, based on testimony from thousands of victims of abuse that took place from the 1930s through to the 1990s. Let's get more on the damning report and its implications for Ireland and its Roman Catholic Church. Atika Schubert is following developments from London. Atika, the numbers are stunning, but let me ask you, even at that, were these isolated cases? Were most of the institutions safe places to put children in their care?
Well, this is what's so damning about this report, is that it says that this kind of physical and sexual abuse was endemic in many of the schools, and that there was a climate of fear. These so-called industrial schools were designed for kids who had been orphaned or had come from disadvantaged families, often that meant from unmarried mothers, and put into these institutions. And when they arrived there, they were treated to physical abuse, reports of beatings, for example, also reports of rapes and sexual abuse at many of the boys' school. All of these institutions run by religious Catholic authorities, and this is what's so shocking. Now, this report has been 9 years in the making. It's 5 volumes long. It's massive, so it's going to take a lot of time to go through it, but it's quite clear just from the very start these are not isolated cases. And the defense that some religious institutions have put up, that some of these kids would have at least been better off at these institutions than on the streets, is simply not acceptable. And that's according to the justice who released this report today. Here's what he said.
When you take people into a state-regulated, statutory system of care, whether it's right or wrong to subject them to such detention, you owe them a duty to take proper care of them. And it cannot be an answer to a complaint about abuse or inadequate care that the people would have been worse off if you hadn't taken them in.
Now, we'll have to wait and see how victims respond to this. Again, it's a big report, but for now, victims say, well, they're happy that the problem has been acknowledged. They still want people to be named and shamed, and they want to see prosecutions at the end, Jonathan.
Now, Justice Ryan was apparently anticipating some of the reaction he could expect from the church, or some that we've heard already, but now there is this enormous report. Are church authorities saying anything about its conclusions?
The church authorities have so far refused to comment. That's both in Ireland and in the Vatican, saying that they want enough time to go through this report, and it is a massive report to go through. But it's also interesting to note that even though the report goes through the extent of the abuse, it doesn't name anyone in particular. It's very specific about that, and it really just describes and acknowledges just how endemic this abuse was in the system.
Well, let me ask you about that, because this is an enormous body of research. This is a lot of evidence that could be useful in court. Will it allow the victims to prosecute their tormentors?
It is a lot of evidence. Thousands of alleged victims were interviewed, but this will not be used for criminal prosecution. One of the main points of this investigation is that a lot of these religious organizations that were running these institutions successfully sued for the council and the commission not to name anyone in particular and not to use these interviews as part of a criminal prosecution. So no, victims will not be able to see any of this evidence used in prosecution, and that's why many of the alleged victims are very upset.